on this episode of the People of Pearland podcast. But I shot his truck one time.
Wait, you shot a what?
His truck.
His truck.
Bird hunting. See,
I told you. I can't go hunting with this guy.
I know.
No, hang on.
And I can't learn to take care of kids, apparently. So
he, in my defense, he told me to pull the trigger. Stay tuned for more. We are recording now. Ready?
Ready. Good.
Clap break. We don't do video, but I still do the clap break just in case we know where to break it.
I'm down for that.
All right. Welcome everybody to the next episode of the People of Pearland podcast. We have a very special guest on our show today. Assistant Fire Chief Jacob Jimmy John Johnson. What's your middle name?
James.
Ooh, no, it's not.
Yeah, it is J cubed.
J cubed.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing today.
J cubed. And
Jacob James
when
Johnson.
I buy a ranch one day, it's going to be the Triple J Ranch.
Oh, that's perfect.
I love that idea. Yeah. Where are you going to buy a ranch? Money's no object, where would your ranch be?
Money's no object. I would probably have to say definitely South Texas.
I would agree with that. We're in South Texas.
So, my deer lease is in Dehanis.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that, but I think I'd want to go a little bit further south of that.
Camp Wood?
Yeah. No, Camp Wood's north of 90. I got to be south of 90 so I can get those longer deer seasons.
Yeah.
And
get that south zone.
Yeah, I want the south zone where I can hunt and I can hunt doves longer and just do a little bit of everything longer. So definitely South Texas, south of Dehanis or in Dehanis, if money was no object. But then I would have a bunch of ranches.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, variety is the spice of life.
Utah, Montana. I'd be the next John Dutton.
Weird flex, but we have a deer lease in Bernie, which is a fantastic place to hunt. It's hill country deer, but it's beautiful, beautiful property. And the ranch owners, they have family that live there, but they live on a ranch in New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That'd be the spot. That's what's up.
Elk, mule deer.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Pronghorn. That's one thing.
Aliens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait, what?
Roswell.
Right. Yeah. Pronghorn is one that I've always wanted to hunt. It seems like a
you can go 6 hours from here and hunt that.
Oh, in
Lubbock.
Yeah. They do draw hunts up there too, right?
Yeah, they do all kinds of stuff. But you can go up there. You can hunt mule deer. You can hunt pronghorn.
You can do that farther west Texas too, out near Big Bend and.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Rattlesnakes.
The problem is the money it takes to do all that, Jacob.
Well, it does take a lot of money. It does.
It is. It's an expensive sport.
It is. But, if we didn't have other hobbies like we were just discussing, then we would probably have money to buy a ranch and hunt wherever we want.
I think when I drive, every time I drive out to Rock Springs, like I drive past all these places and I'm like, what do these people do? Like how, because I see the real estate guides and some of those ranches are just shockingly expensive. They're all expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it though is just family pass downs.
Yeah.
I think that's the most interesting thing that I like about Texas and ranches and hunting and all that in general is most of that land's been in family since the 1800s.
Right.
And so it just gets passed down and passed down and passed down. Even like my deer lease has been in the family for over 100 years in that family. So it just keeps getting passed down. And so it's not so much that maybe they have a outrageous job that pays an outrageous amount of money. It's just family land that gets passed down.
But there is some. You definitely drive past some places that are like,
they own an oil business.
Yeah, we get to drive past, which I always think is neat. The YO Ranch.
Oh, I love the YO.
It's on our way on 41 down there, and every single time I'm like, I need to go just drive in the ranch road and check it out. I've never done that.
Well, and that's what I love about Dehanis because right down the road is the 777.
Yeah.
So, that's been all over TV, magazines, you name it. So I like to take the back road sometime and just drive by it. They don't care who I am, but I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I get to drive down their fence line, on the main road and see what they have out there. So
now, where's Dehanis? Is it going down towards Kingsville, or is Kingsville further?
Oh, Kingsville is way further in south.
Yeah.
So Dehanis is straight down I-10. And when you get into San Antonio, the I-10-90 split, and you just stay on 90 west, and then you hit Castroville, Hondo, Dehanis.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
it's 3 hours and 3
Yeah.
minutes from my door to the gate. It's great.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot closer than my place. That's
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. It's a lot closer than other places I was looking. So
Yeah.
I found a solid deal, man. It's gold. I love it. So
That's awesome.
I'm
That's
not ever leaving.
not too far from Divine. Divine just a little further south. From
Yeah,
there,
south
right?
of there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Some of the best bird hunting I have ever done.
Oh, 100%.
Especially the white wing population.
Oh, yeah, it's
Golly.
It is.
Hondo, another favorite place of mine.
I like
really
Hondo.
good place. I like their feed store there, Mums.
Yeah,
or,
Mummies.
Mummies.
Yeah, Mummies is good.
Yeah.
I like their HEB. I do.
Really? What?
And Hondo, it's really small.
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
it is the perfect. There is no like, oh, I'm going to run in and out and go
Yeah.
find 100 other things.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you really can only just go
Right.
in and
Yeah.
out. It's like 14 aisles and a little pharmacy. That's it.
So we have a Lowe's supermarket in Rock Springs, and it's a Lowe's supermarket / Ace Hardware.
hmm
And I mean, what you get is what you get.
That's it.
The thing that blows my mind in towns like that, especially Rock Springs, is it's real remote, real isolated. Town of about 800 people, and the groceries there are expensive.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how,
'Cause
people
they
that
can
aren't
do that
independently
there.
wealthy.
Yeah.
Well, and the cost to get the goods out
Right.
there and things like
Oh
that.
yeah, big time. That's
Um,
why.
But it is expensive to live out
Same
there.
with
Gas more
Bandera,
expensive. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's the thing I don't like about Rock Springs and Bandera is you drive 5 hours up there and you get to the gate for the ranch and you still have another 45-minute drive down the ranch road to get to the camp.
And a lot of them you need 4-wheel drive to get out of
Yeah,
there. And
It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
it's but it's an
I got
experience.
concrete streets, man, all the way until I get to the gate.
That's
Pretty sweet.
fancy.
Oh yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
We the place we used to hunt in Hondo, we just went out there for bird hunting, and the dude he raises dogs, really expensive like bird dogs, has axis deer, raises crops, does bird hunts. Like their family has a real entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, they have to be competitive out there and to make a
Absolutely.
living. But I shot his truck one time.
Wait, you shot a what?
His truck,
His truck.
His
Got
truck.
bird hunting. He
See, I told you. I can't go hunting with this
it.
guy.
I know.
no,
Yep.
hang on.
And I can't learn to take care of kids, apparently. So,
He, in my defense, he told me to pull the trigger. He was, and they know the ranch owner and the ranch hand. They park their trucks on the edge of the field, and we're out in the field, and they stand on the backside of their trucks. And he said, "Bird, bird!" And I turned, and two of us were looking at him. Bird's coming back this way, and I put my gun up, and he goes, "Shoot!" And when I put it down, it was right on his truck, and he saw it, and he ducked behind his truck, and it was far enough away, it just powdered the side of it, just wipe it off. But crazy. Just wipe the dust off, like the gunpowder. I mean, the lead powder off the truck. It's fun times.
it never ceased to amaze me.
No, yeah, it's something
Never
different
ceased to
every time.
amaze me.
I love.
I mean, all I
That's
got out
fun.
of that story is I almost shot the guy.
Yeah,
No,
right.
You
I
know,
didn't.
saying,
He had
shoot,
good
shoot,
fast
he had the
reflexes.
dog, You know,
I know what to do and not do with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's-
I always know where you're pointing. We're going to edit that part out.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell that story. So you like hunting? Are you from Texas originally?
No, I'm from Louisiana originally. I mean, I spent most of my life here, but I come from a farming family back in Louisiana. So
Where in Louisiana?
Iota, Louisiana. It's a very small town. It's got one stoplight, 3A high school. My uncle owns the AC business.
Oh,
My cousins own the salon. my other uncle in Rain, Louisiana was the tire guy. Yeah, my uncle, aunts, cousins are all teachers, counselors, and principals at the schools. My mom worked at the state bank there, so
the students are all your cousins.
There
or
you go.
pretty much, right?
Nieces and nephews.
It's kind of like the town that we encompass. So our family's been there forever.
Yeah.
Another opportunity of land being passed down.
Sure.
So we have several hundred acres over there, family land that's
Wow.
been split between brothers and sisters. And so my grandfather, we call him Pawpaw. My Pawpaw, he the way that land came into our family was due to integrity and hard work.
Mm.
And so he was a young man with my great grandfather, Alex, on, and he was a farmhand, dropped out of school in the 8th grade, taught himself math, taught himself arithmetic, taught himself all this stuff so he could work on the farm. And when the landowner passed away, she willed all the land to my grandfather and my great grandfather because they had worked all their life on that farm.
Amazing.
So, my grandfather then became a successful construction manager and did all the roadways in Louisiana. Did some work on the Chaffalaya Basin Bridge, and was a deer hunter and a farmer and a rancher. And my uncles to this day farm and ranch that same farm and the same road my mom grew up on, they all live on. And so we go there from time to time. They're coming in town this weekend and they're bringing a bunch of crawfish with them. So we're going to have a boil at my dad's house and just kick back and enjoy the afternoon, So.
What time do we show up?
Yeah. 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock on Sunday.
Okay.
Young cleanup from Saturday's crawfish boil.
So my brother-in-law is from Louisiana, Welsh, Louisiana.
Yeah, Welsh. Yeah.
And I went with him, I don't know, one Christmas. And like, I think of Texans as being hospitable, there's that.
Nah.
Texas, not like Louisiana.
Nope. There ain't nothing like Louisiana.
Straight up, just like you're one of the family.
That's it. Everybody's your friend. Everybody will cook for you. Everybody will feed you. Whatever you need, we got you.
I've never eaten so well in my. I mean, man, I might be Cajun. I don't know.
No, you're definitely not.
Sorry, I hate to tell you.
Okay, fair enough.
Definitely not. We don't shoot trucks.
It was an accident.
Yeah.
So
I got the bird.
Although I did drive through a barn and a tractor when I was 9, so I guess there is that.
Okay, all right.
There is that.
We've all got our moments.
Yeah,
What brings you to Texas from all that?
Well, my dad got transferred with Shell.
Gotcha.
So BFI, it was originally BFI. They gave him a couple options, and it was like Arizona, Europe, or Texas.
Yeah.
And so my mom and dad grew up right there. My dad in Basile, my mom in Iota. 15 miles apart. And then their first experience when they got married at 18 outside their city was LSU. And so it was like, we had no experience. They're like, we're not moving too far away.
Right.
Yeah.
So we moved here with BFI, and then they gave dad another option, like overseas somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, or Arizona or California. I can't remember. And he was like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm done moving. So then he moved over to Shell, and he just retired 2 years ago.
Wow.
With 29 years with Shell.
Yeah.
So, he just retired. He's living the good life now, and he gets to fish and hang out and do all the hobbies that we all like
Must be nice.
every day. Yeah. So just bought a boat because he wanted to buy a boat.
Of course.
And now he's fishing, and he's like, oh, I did this today. And I was like, what did you do? And I'm like, all the stuff you used to tell me when I was a kid. That's what I did today. So, yeah.
Is he a salt fisherman or freshwater?
Both. Yeah. Saltwater fishing, it's weird how Louisiana is. If you live towards New Orleans and Venice and Lafourche and all that, you're saltwater fishermen all day long.
Yeah.
In Louisiana and Iota, Louisiana, and Rain and stuff, there is some saltwater fishing. You got to go down to Holly Beach and a couple other areas, and you can saltwater fish. But freshwater, like sac-a-lait, crappie, that's huge, and that's what we really grew up on. So Bundick Lake or Toledo Bend or any of those other lakes around Louisiana, central Louisiana, east and west, we would fish those. My papa had a big camp on Toledo Bend. He had another camp on Bundick Lake, so we would go up there as a kid and fish.
Cool.
And, so I mean it's kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
But Dad did mostly freshwater fishing because on my dad's side, his uncles owned big rice farms, and so they all had stocked ponds and reservoirs, right?
Yeah.
So if your pump broke, your well broke, you didn't get rain, you could still flood your rice fields. And so he would fish in that. And so he was real big in that. We moved to Texas, and everybody's like, man, freshwater fishing's for the birds. Like, we're going to go saltwater fish. So then we started to learn saltwater fishing. That's where I really like. I like the saltwater fishing. But above all else, hunting is my thing. I mean, I could really care less about fishing some days. And during the fall, I don't even pick up a fishing pole. I hunt. And if I'm not hunting, I'm coaching football. So that's my thing,
That's a full schedule for sure.
Oh yeah.
We grew up with just a little 1/4 acre pond in our backyard, and just
koi pond or
no, a fishing pond.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there might be koi in there. I don't know. No, we stock it with bluegill and perch and bass and catfish, and every once in a while we do meat haul on catfish and do a fish fry. It was always fun, and my boys still go out there and you'll catch perch and then try to catch bass with the perch, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm with you. I'd much rather saltwater fish than freshwater fish, and I'd rather hunt than either of those
all day long. Yeah. And I think it's just because saltwater fishing, especially here in Galveston, which I'll be honest, I've been to beaches all over. Galveston's the only place that you can drive your truck on the beach.
Right.
And I think that's what makes saltwater fishing so attractive down here.
Yeah.
Is I can literally decide the night before, like, I'm going to go fishing. And I don't need to bring a boat.
Right.
I don't have to bring a boat.
Yeah.
I don't have to bring all these different tackle boxes. Like, I know the colors and the baits that they're going to hit on. And I put them in one tackle box with one fishing pole, park my truck on the beach, and walk into the water.
Yep.
So I think that's the difference there. But since we're on the fishing, we're going to test Josh here.
Oh, here we go.
How do you properly fry fish?
How do you properly fry fish?
What base do you use to hold your seasoning? How much do you season? Do you just dump them in one big basket, or do you do them individually over a Coleman stove and a black pot? Or
oh man,
the look on his face.
He's
like, my wife does it.
Oh no, I don't actually like fried catfish. No, I use mustard.
Okay. Check one.
Cornmeal.
Okay.
For my
check two.
Batter.
Check two.
Mixed with some with salt, pepper, and not Tony Satchery's, but the gumbo or shrimp boil, something like that.
I can fly with that.
I do small batches, big fryer, peanut oil, one at a time. Ooh. So I don't like doing them in a pan because I like getting a full fry all at once. Yeah. And peanut oil has a nice high flash point and doesn't leave a lot of residual flavor.
Doesn't.
It fries nice and clean.
It does.
And then pull them out there.
It does. See,
look at
that's a very Texas way to fry fish.
So how's Louisiana different?
It's really not much different. For me personally, you can't season fish enough.
I agree.
For me, it just never seems to soak in that seasoning.
Yeah,
I use mustard. I use cornmeal, but I also mix flour in with my cornmeal.
That's what my dad does. He's always done.
And I season the flour because the flour will hold it, cornmeal won't.
Yep.
And then I season the fish the night before.
Oh, interesting.
So I use Slap Your Mama for everything.
Oh, yeah, I have used that before.
Slap Your Mama for everything. And I use corn oil instead of peanut.
Interesting.
Yep, corn oil. I think now, though, peanut oil, most of the time during a fish fry, you could probably save and filter and reuse. Corn oil, you can't. When it's done, it's done. But I find, man, they come out way more moist on the inside and a lot more crispy on the outside.
Is your fry temperature the same?
Yep, 350.
Yeah. Fascinating.
350. I like to run it about 340, and I keep it right there at that level. And I cut mine into nuggets. That's the other thing. I don't do fillets. I cut them into nuggets, and I put them in a fry basket, and I dump them in there.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm doing fillets or sac-a-lait or something like that, then I do a cast iron skillet or a black pot.
Yep.
And
I will do if I'm doing, different, but cast iron when I'm doing blackened fish, especially. And if it's a quick, small thing, if it's not a big fish fry, then I'll do it in a pan or directly on the griddle. That's
I like the grill. I love catfish on the Blackstone.
Yeah, buddy.
And get them really. Man, a lot of butter.
Good.
We need to eat with him more often, man.
I've been trying to tell y'all. Can't get you to make runs. If he goes take pictures of fires, he could come to the firehouse and eat breakfast afterwards.
Man. I need to get on those active 911 so I can.
Yeah,
I'll go to those things.
Yeah. It'd be a lot better because right now we're batting 0. Joe.
So speaking of fire, how did you get into what you put a fire hat on one day and you're like, yep, this is it?
Yeah, pretty much. I always had a burning desire for like what I did there.
That was good.
I always had a burning desire to I always say I didn't grow up saying I want to be a firefighter. I have to be a firefighter. But man, I remember very vividly every time my mom would drive by a fire station, I would throw a fit as a young child to go to that fire station. I need to go to the firehouse.
18 years old, just kicking in the back seat of the car.
Absolutely. I'm like, get me out of my car seat, put me in that firehouse.
Do you have anyone in your family that was public safety?
None.
Like that? Yeah.
None. My entire family is farmers, barbers, salon. Hairdressers. And then other blue collar work like AC, rice farmer, so on and so forth. So, first generation firefighter. My dad was an accountant in finances and all types of stuff his whole career. My mom stayed at home, but was a babysitter and stuff, grew up on the farms. it was very weird for me. I always had to go to the firehouse. And so I was in high school and I was showing animals with FFA, and I was taking all these different leadership roles throughout FFA to where vice president of my chapter and a liaison with the district level, and I was president of Washington D.C. Leadership Conference, and doing that. And one of our things was to go to the firehouse and take some pictures on this fire truck. And I'm like, man, that was my most, like, out of my 4 years of ag, like, that was my most favorite moment, was like, I get to go take a picture with a fire truck.
That's awesome.
And so we walked in the firehouse, Katy Fire Department. We're meeting with the people, and I just asked one of the volunteers there. I said, how do I get involved in volunteering, or how old do I have to be? And he's like, well, how old are you? I said, I'm 15. And he was like, oh, you can sign up today. And I said, huh? He goes, yeah, you can sign up today. We'll train you. We'll teach you. We'll give you all the gear, all this stuff. Now he goes, there's some restrictions that you have until you're 18, but if your parents sign this form, you're good to go. And I was like, oh, okay. Can I sign up now? And so there I was in my FFA, class blues, dress blues, right? Awesome. And my corduroy jacket and my Lone Star Farmer degree hanging. And I'm like, sign me up. And so I brought the forms home to my parents. My mom, she cries, like, oh, he's going to die. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to die. And, my dad's like, yeah, I support this. And that is it. The rest is history, man.
Amazing.
So at 15, like, were you riding a fire truck?
Yeah. So what it was is, so at 15, you had to have special permission to ride a fire truck. So it wasn't like every time I went to the firehouse that I was going to make a fire. Most of the time on the fires for the interior attack, like the first in team, I wasn't allowed to be on that. Sometimes I did. Sometimes they'd sneak me in. One of my mentors actually got suspended for 2 weeks because he put me on the first line. And I think I was 16 at the time. Wow. Yeah. And so, but it was, I always tell people, I describe it as I was a glorified water boy. I mean, to be honest, I went to fires, I handed out water, I changed air packs, I threw ladders, I did whatever I could on the outside. And then when the majority of the fire was knocked down, they would let me go in on the inside of the house with the air pack and get to understand like what they were doing and try to start learning. And so that's why I tell everybody, like, I may have not have actively started fighting fire on the first line, on being first in until I was 18. But I've been doing it since I was 15. I've been learning. I've been training. They sent me to A&M when I was 16 years old. They sent me to Richmond to the burn field to do live burns when I was 16. They were constantly training me. Right. And so as a part of the State Firemen and Fire Marshals Association Volunteer Department, that's the certifying agency for volunteers. And then when I was 18, I graduated high school, went straight into EMT school, straight into fire school. And at 19 years old, I was a paid fireman. And I've been doing it ever since. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And you stayed there in Katy?
I did. I stayed there in Katy. I left in 2007 to come to Pearland, and then I've been in Pearland ever since. Now, there's different fire departments and there's different positions within those fire departments. And, like it's no hidden secret, like firefighters were not paid well, and I still don't think are paid to what the expectation of their job is, but we're paid a lot better, and it's very appreciative.
Are you talking about across the industry?
Across the industry.
Yeah.
But when I started my paid job, I had to have 3 other jobs just to live life,
Wow.
And I wasn't living lavishly. You know what I'm saying? I had a 1980 F-150 and, and just normal things that a young man has in his life. But it was in order to get a house and, meet my wife and take her on dates and just live life. So I had 5 jobs at one point. So I was working Katy. I was working at a hospital part-time as an EMT. I was working at another fire department up in Northwest Harris County. I was working at another fire department in Katy, and I was volunteering for another fire department in Katy. So, I wore navy blue 7 days a week and made runs at least 7 days a week and carried multiple pagers. It was like Inspector Gadget, and I had bubblegum lights on my personal vehicle and a siren. So, you go make a run and, and pop the lights on the roof and turn on the siren and have your window down with your arm out like you're cool and drive through traffic.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine. I would love to be in the other cars when this blue rusted Bondo truck was coming down the road with lights and sirens. Get out of my way. No. Yeah. I'm going to the fire department, so. Yeah.
I think it's important, when we talk about like the come up, I think about this. my experience, probably nothing like that. I don't think I've ever worked that hard in my life, but there is a period, like everybody has to pay their dues somehow,
Absolutely.
some way. And I mean, I think that, like, I look back at experiences and I'm like, golly, that was tough.
Oh yeah.
But I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be where I am.
That's right.
If I hadn't done those things, if I hadn't cut my teeth with that experience or made that mistake or whatever the case may be, right? And I don't think that we can discount, those periods of struggle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have to encapsulate them.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, when I talk to young kids, especially, I say kids. Well, I'm old. Yeah. That are graduating college, especially in marketing degrees, they'll ask, like, how do you go about getting a job? And I'm like, you just got to do it.
You got to market yourself.
Right. That's the thing that blows my mind. But I always tell them, like, in your field as a marketing person, go get a sales job. Go get a sales job that's 100% commissions, because you're young enough that you don't need to make all that much money. You have opportunities to fail right now that are relatively inconsequential.
Sure.
And the things that you will learn if you don't do your job well, you don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Those lessons come so much faster.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know if anybody's taking me up on that advice. I haven't heard anything from anybody like, you know what, I did what you said, and now I'm a millionaire. So I don't know if it's good advice or not, but it worked for me. Yeah. I mean, my first job.
He was a millionaire.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
What are you doing here?
Okay.
Why are you sitting here right now? No, my first job was a 100% commission sales job, and I still use those skills, the things that, I think about things
absolutely
in that mindset of, cost, benefit, profits and losses, things like that, because it was forged into my brain early on.
Well, and I think that's what's a driving force that existed when I was getting on the job that doesn't really exist today, was that you're a volunteer and you are essentially putting your life on the line for free. And you are risking your family's income if you are working outside of the volunteer fire department for free. And, for me in my situation is when I met my wife, I was, like I said, I was still volunteering somewhere. And she eventually said, like, look, if we're going to get married and we're going to start a family, like, you already have 4 jobs. And then when this little black pager goes off, you jump to the firehouse.
Right.
Like, when are you going to say, like, I'm not going to keep running into fires and running to accident scenes and sitting on the freeways for free?
Right.
And it really hits home, right? Because it's like, I did that so I could get the basis I needed to be successful as a career firefighter. And I've made this a career. And we always talk about the home life balance, and there's so many other issues and life lessons that we could go into, but it's right. Like, if I'm always on call, then I am never on call for my family.
Right.
And I had to learn that, okay, I need to step back a little bit, but those experiences and those lessons and all of the times that I took butt chewings for doing things wrong on the scene for free have grown me to where I sit today.
Sure. And
in the lessons that I teach today to the newer members of a fire service and the fire department here in Pearland and anywhere else I go and talk of, like, take these opportunities, take these moments when you're young, grab a hold of them. Don't miss the moment to make an impact in your life and someone else's life, but at the same time, respect them enough that when you're home, you're home.
Yeah.
And that these are lessons learned to teach for the future, but it's not that you always have to be prepared at home. You know, take that time at home.
Well, and I mean that balance it's really, really difficult to do well. And I mean, that's the thing. I still struggle with it, right? Leaving work at work, knowing when to turn it off, knowing when to offload. Like, this is something that Joe and I've been trying to get better about, is like, who's doing what. So, we're spreading the load, fairly, right? Because we get caught up in all the things and, everything becomes a priority. And I think getting to that, being very intentional about, I'm here, right? I'm not doing the other thing, or saying, like, hey, I have to do this work thing, but once I'm done, 100% focused. I I think that's a really tricky thing. And one of the things that I talk about with the new hires, especially, is the human aspect of everything.
Yep.
Especially in the fire service, y'all are dealing with people on probably the worst day of their lives.
Guaranteed. It doesn't matter if it's a paper cut, if it's a toothache, or their house is on fire, or their loved one is not breathing and we're having to do CPR. It is absolutely, by definition of them, their worst day.
Yeah.
We have to make that day better.
Right.
And we have to be prepared to do heroic things or perform miracles in order to make someone's day better.
Sure.
And the one thing that I tell the new hires, and especially, not so much when I'm here and I'm doing the new hire experience talk, but more or less when we have rookies that come through the door at Pearland, is like, look, here's what I need you to understand. I take them outside the fire field and we have a long talk, but I said, right behind the fire field is a neighborhood. I tell them, I said, I want you to turn. I want you to stare at any of those houses. Pick one. I don't care. Stare at it. And I want you to understand that right now at 9:00 in the morning, there's a mother there sitting in her robe, drinking coffee, watching Mickey Mouse Club with a baby, who has a husband at work, who has an older kid at school. And that mother has expectations. Has expectations that if her house catches on fire this morning, we are coming to save them. If that baby chokes on the food this morning, we are coming to save that baby. If something goes on at that address, that we will make their day better. That husband at work has the expectation that he will come home to a family, that he will come home to a house, that he will come home to a wife and 2 kids.
Yeah.
That older kid at school has expectations that he or she will come home to parents, right, and to a brother or sister, and to a home, and to a bed. And if you don't do your job and you don't meet those expectations, then you have failed as a firefighter on this job, and you have failed the Pearland Fire Department. And I'm telling you right now today, if you don't want to accept the honor and the dedication, the commitment to meeting those expectations for the next 30 years, I don't need you to work here.
Yeah.
And it's a very honest conversation, because we have a very real job.
Right. Yeah,
we affect people's lives on every day, at every level, at every moment. And so I have to make sure that every firefighter that walks through the door, every admin assistant that walks through the door, every professional staff member that walks through the door, every code enforcement officer, fire marshal that walks through the door understands, respects those expectations, and meets them each day, day in and day out, for the entirety of their career.
Sure.
And it's not to be mean. It's not to say, oh, we're up here, we're Pearland, but I like to see that we are the elite of the elite.
Sure.
And if you don't want to rise up, then please step out, because there's a line behind you that wants to come in.
Yeah.
And I have found that when you have those very real talks like that, a lot of people step up to the challenge and become even greater and more influential firefighters on the job than they ever thought they were possible of being.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you do things like that. And I think that it is, especially in your line of work, that's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But
that goes for you too, right? You have expectations for your fire department. Joe's got expectation for his fire department.
Right. Yeah.
Katy Fire Department, they better not mess up.
Right.
I'm a former member and I live there.
Yeah.
And if Katy Fire Department fails my family, guess who's going to be on their doorstep?
Sure.
Me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask why.
Yeah.
Where have you failed in your preparation? Where have you failed in your training? Where have you failed in your mindset of a firefighter that allowed you to affect the rest of my life from you?
Yeah.
And I need you to soak that in for a second, because at the end of the day, if that happens in Pearland, someone's coming to admin.
Sure.
Chief Taylor's face is going to be in the cameras, and we're going to have to explain the reasons why.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to say that we have done everything that we possibly could to prepare for that moment. There's just things that we can't control.
Right.
There are. That's
right.
True. Yeah.
But I can promise you that the preparation, the commitment, the dedication to this job and to you as a citizen has always been the top priority.
Yep.
You have to ensure that.
Yep. Well, and I think that, the idea of that, like Jocko Willick's extreme ownership.
Absolutely.
Right. That idea of, people need to have the authority, right, and should take the responsibility to lead on their own.
Absolutely.
Right. And that, that failure does rise all the way to the top. It's a failure of, lack of visibility or lack of vision, or long-term trajectory. And that's the thing we talk a lot about, and, especially when we're doing the why exercise work, because we see it a lot when I have those conversations outside of departments that are public safety oriented, because I think you and the police department do a very good job of articulating like this is the importance of what we do,
Sure.
right? This is why we exist as an organization. It's harder, I think, for people behind the scenes or in more administrative roles to see or feel that. And I've actually had comments like, well, my contribution is minimal. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
If you don't do the thing
you just did it yourself too, whenever you were kind of comparing your experiences as well, that
right.
It doesn't equate the things that y'all do in the fire department, right? But
right, it's apples and puppy dogs. I mean, they're two completely different things, right? But they all, just like Pearland Water. Pearland Water didn't exist. Fire couldn't do the job of right. And all the things that go with it. I envy y'all in a lot of ways. I don't envy the stress that you have on a daily basis. I can't imagine emotionally what y'all have to go through every day. But it's refreshing, I think, for people on their worst day to see Pearland Fire roll up because they know it's going to be okay. Because
Absolutely.
You've built that, and that's that intentional investment of training and thoughtfulness and camaraderie, because that feels like a big thing, like how the firehouses work with each other, within their own houses, and I mean the things that you've written and training that you've done on how those people basically living together
absolutely
make a unit. I mean, they make a family, and that's a really important part of that job, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's it is. So there's a lot that I consider the golden ticket of the fire service, right? So you'll hear me sometimes say like company officers are the golden ticket of the fire service. They are 100%. Right. But
what does the company officer do?
So they're in charge of a crew at a firehouse. Yep. So they are in charge. They ride the right front seat. They're the ones that are first in on a fire. They're making decisions on calls. They're leading their men and women to battle per se. They are the first line supervisor in a firehouse in the fire service, and they are the golden ticket. They are there. They have to have the biggest bucket of accountability. They take the most criticism, and they have to be able to operate under all of that. Right. And so I always say, like, they are the golden ticket. If you have a solid company officer, then you will have a solid crew because they'll buy into his or her message. But with that is the golden ticket to that crew is that camaraderie and understanding and respecting the fact that you do live a third of your life at a minimum. And that's what I like. I love to clean up and clear up sometimes is everyone says, oh, you live a third of your life in the firehouse. It's more than that.
Right.
We live a third of our life in the firehouse at a minimum, but you run into overtime, you run into heavy staffing, you run into emergency responses or disasters. Yeah. You end up living here for almost half. Right. Yeah. So we go back to 2008 with Hurricane Ike. We were here for 18 days straight.
Ooh.
You go back to Hurricane Harvey. We were here for 11 days straight. You go to Winter Storm Uri. We were here for 84 hours straight.
Right.
You go to, any other major event. We're here in 2020, the year of hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got called in, or we heavy staffed, or we prepped our specialty teams, our spec op teams, 6-7 times that people were coming in off
like
duty.
2 or 3.
We
we activated several times, right? The George Floyd funeral, that was a big event, right? And so we had to bring in extra staff for that, to make sure that it was hot, man, like all the people in the streets, make sure that everybody was well taken care of. If they needed medical care, we were there. So all these events take place, not to mention our training committees and the time that we have to go train out of state or off duty, all these things. You end up being a firefighter for about half of your life.
Right.
And so
and that's not including just like keeping the firehouse clean and keeping the trucks clean.
Oh,
and doing the training on site.
That's
and
just daily stuff that is just second nature.
Yeah. Well, and then I think about Alex Gomez, right? He does
all the steer
stuff, right? And I actually mentioned that yesterday in new hire orientation was, it's almost frustrating to me how helpful City of Pearland employees are generally speaking, because I can't keep up.
Yeah.
It's
hard.
And he's one of those examples. Not only is he a firefighter, but he's also doing all this other stuff. And then he emailed me separately and said, hey, I'd like to help with translation services. And I'm like, dude, You don't have to carry all the torches, man,
right.
but I'm going to take them up.
But
on
he
it
loves
sure.
it. Yeah.
And
that's
passion,
the thing.
Right?
So it's like, so you have all of that we're involved in. So that camaraderie at the firehouse is key.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to have moments where you can sit down as a crew and you can have a cup of coffee and you can just tell stories. I don't care if they're lies. I don't care if they're truths. I don't care if you caught a perch and you caught a 10-pound bass.
I've totally never done that.
I think he just did earlier, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, he told that story.
I caught a 10-pound bass with the perch. Actually, it was 5
So, but so you have those moments, and it's like that is what drives morale. It's what drives the camaraderie of the crew. That camaraderie is what drives the crew, because you need each and every single one of those crew members for at a minimum of the 48 hours they're on shift to be locked in, ready to roll. They have to eat, breathe, sleep, and their soul has to be driven by their love for that job for 48 hours at a minimum. And if you want to be great at this job, then your soul has to be driven by the love of this job for your life.
Right.
This isn't, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. Right. And that's no disrespect to any of y'all or any other person in the city, but this is a lifelong mission to performing miracles or performing heroic acts or meeting the expectations of the citizens. Right. Lifelong. Yeah. Doctors don't stop studying when they get doctor's degrees, right? Or when they get their MD license. Lawyers don't stop studying law when they become a lawyer. But for whatever reason, it's almost expected as a firefighter, like you're done with school, you're done. No, it is a lifelong study, right? Because I promise you, we talked about it today at lunch with me and Chief Burt and one of our lieutenants, David Hefner, is, the stuff that I learned in fire school 23 years ago and the stuff when I got my professional certification 21 years ago, was all of that data and all of those findings and none of that exists anymore. Right. It's all null and void, because data continues to come in, projects continue to come in, research continues to happen, and it's like, man, like we need to start upgrading.
Right. And you have to stay competitive, right?
Right. And so like, when I was in fire school, it was the fire triangle, right? And like you need heat, oxygen, and say I even lost my train of thought now.
Catalyst?
So you
heat, oxygen, and a fuel?
Fuel. Thank you.
Hey, look at me. I didn't
I don't know this.
Right? But now, so you're going to have to edit that out. So you need heat, oxygen, and fuel. And then on top of that, now it's the tetrahedron, the fire tetrahedron. It's the same thing, but now there's this chain reaction that goes on. Right. And so that's like right in the middle of the triangle. And so you have all these things and you continuously learn, the cancer initiative that never existed in the fire service is now like huge. Right. It was always about heart health and taking care of your heart, and heart attacks are the number one killer, to where now it's, heart attacks are still killing firefighters, but it's all about this big push for cancer. Yeah. And, so what's the next big thing, right? Because now what we're finding is that there's things that we were washing our gear in that cause cancer. And goodness. Dawn soap causes cancer. And so like there's all this stuff in here, and that's presumed. That's from some data out there that Dawn soap does that. But the chemicals used to make Dawn soap are also related to cancer-related illnesses. Right. So there's so much in there that we have to keep up with, like that stuff that we have to constantly study that isn't even based on pulling a line and hooking up to a hydrant and getting water and putting fire out. Yep. So on the back end, there's people in the fire department right now today that have to study stuff like that. Yeah. And so we got to keep up with it, and
well, and I can imagine in a community like Pearland where, the full paid fire service is relatively young, right? Building that, that adds a whole nother level. We're not even done building fire stations yet. And not to mention the fact that you need to buy fire trucks and ambulances every once in a while, and they're $1 million+ a piece and $500,000 for an ambulance and 18 months on back order. There's a whole sort of business unit component to it that is completely detached, but equally, if not more, it's as important as fighting the fires themselves, because if you don't have the equipment, you can't fight the fire. And so it's always fascinating to see. And it seems like public safety is the easiest sell, right? Because you can't not have fire trucks, right? But the reality is stuff is expensive.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, so you throw in COVID And then all of that stuff that you say is needed and is an easy sell. I mean, when is the last time have you ever heard of a condenser for an air conditioner being on 200 plus day back order?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
That's a common theme right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a common theme that fire trucks that used to take 8 and 9 months to be built are 2 to 3 years out.
Yeah.
EPA is constantly updating the engines. That's stuff that we have to study and we have to keep up with.
Right.
And what does that do? Anybody that upgrades a standard, what does it do on the back end?
Right.
Upgrading cost.
Yep.
And so how do we justify that? How do we combat that? How do we take all those new standards and make them work for our fire department? That's all stuff that we have to constantly be studying and keeping up with and figuring out what is the best answer for the citizens of this city.
So when you started in the fire service, did you imagine yourself, having to take on, like, you're just like, I'm going to fight fires all the time? Or did you realize, like, this is going to be part of your career?
No idea. No idea. Right. So I just thought I was going to be this calendar style firefighter, for 30 years and walk away. And then like life slaps you in the face. And it's like, hello, you're not making any calendar. Right. So, so you have that. And no, I never did.
Yeah.
I think I knew it. I would like to at least think that I expected some change.
Yeah.
Going back to young Jacob, I think it was probably a thought, but it wasn't a concern. It wasn't a relative thought. It wasn't a priority because my priority was learning the job and having fun, and getting to dive into it and figuring out what makes my clock tick, man. And like all of these things. And I never had any desire to be an admin chief, and now I sit here as an admin chief.
Right.
So, I think that as in any life, you grow up, you mature, you evolve as a human being, and then you evolve in your career. And then I think there's opportunities that shoot themselves your way. And, you have to have very real talk with yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and ask, like, let's have a real conversation. Am I ready for this? Or do I want to do this? Or is this development, for bunker gear, is this kind of like the last one I'm going to see? Or how does this affect us? Because the one thing that we cannot allow ourselves to forget is that the focus is the citizens.
Right.
We have to do what's best for the citizens,
Yep.
whether that's financially, whether that's through our policy and procedure, through our actions, through our training, through our budget. How can we make the best, most effective and efficient outcomes for our citizens? How can we make that happen?
Right.
So we talk about that at the organizational level, and you've seen, the presentation. We exist as a local government entity because of the community, right? And the community is what it is because we exist. It's a symbiotic relationship,
100%,
right?
yep.
If they weren't here, we wouldn't need to be here. And if we weren't here, they wouldn't be here.
That's right.
And so, I firmly believe that, the people that choose to work in this organization, in the fire department, in all the other departments, and they're cut from a very special cloth.
Yeah.
That servant's heart, that motivation, that drive to want to do something worthwhile.
Well, and that's the thing. I think, for the fire department, the police department, you can go any city, anywhere. You're going to have roughly the same benefits. You're going to have roughly the same salary, same pay. You're going to have a cop car. You're going to have a fire truck. Right. I mean, you're going to wear a uniform. You're going to be in a firehouse or a police station. I mean, that's just what it is.
Right.
But I like to look at it almost a little bit reverse of, like we are the operations of the city and all of the departments support the operations of the city, which is great. So we can't do our jobs without all of you doing your jobs. But I also have a certain respect for every other position in the city, because I know that every person here could go somewhere in the private sector and make a ton more money, but they're happy here because of the culture we have in the city, because of the way we take care of each other here in the city, because of the citizens that support us, the council that supports us. And so there's something special here in the city that attracts and retains people. And that's what us as administrators have to keep honing in on and redefining and tweaking and keeping ahead of the game so that we can keep what we have. And
challenging people to articulate it and think about it, right? The why work that we've been doing based on Simon Sinek's Golden Circles concept gets to that point, right? Paycheck is good. Good health benefits are good. Job security is good. Those are really all byproducts, right? There's a reason that I, wake up to my alarm clock every day, get my kids off to school and get myself here. And it's not the job security, it's not the paycheck, it's not the benefits, right? Those are not bad things. But I am motivated to, tell the stories of everything that happens around here, because I love this community and I want people to appreciate all the work that goes on here.
Absolutely.
I want people to be inspired and engaged, right?
Yeah.
And I have a very small, very specific set of skills that God has given me. And, I choose to use them for that benefit, or for the community. And it took me a long time to kind of come to that idea. But now that I kind of have it formed, I want other people to think about it the same way.
Absolutely.
Because in those hard days, especially, or when you get to a point where you're like, man, I do not make enough of this, or like this day is just, you can always lean on that, snap back to that. Why do I exist here as an individual, right?
I mean, how did you feel walking out of PSB, smelly, tired after the winter storm?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, like personally, how did you, because I felt like everybody did their job. Everybody.
I took a picture of myself like the second or last day, like I took a selfie, and I keep it to remind me of like how whipped I was after a week of 12s, sleeping at the PSB, hadn't showered in a couple of days because we ran out of water there. But I was energized. I felt good, because we had done our job and we had done it extremely well. And for us, especially in public information, the George Floyd was actually one of the first, we came together as a joint information center, and it was like, things are starting to click, right? And we continued to build on it. And by Winter Storm Uri, well-oiled machine. Everybody knew their roles. Everybody knew what shift they were on. And we learned we're good for about 5. We were activated for 5 days, I think. We were done by Friday.
Sounds about right.
We're good for about 5 days before people start getting loopy, But we stress tested our group and we survived it, But my previous experiences working in the private sector, I never got to do stuff like that. I never got to say, I did this. I had a positive impact. I helped people stay safe, make the right decision with the right information at the right time.
And then you follow it up with a bathroom selfie.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the Joint Information Center, but I'll show that pic around. I look frazzled, to say the least. It was not a good day.
Anything changed?
No, absolutely nothing's changed. That's why I keep the slick to remind myself.
Just carrying it on, right?
So we always like to wrap these up with that. Speaking of why, what's Jacob James Johnson's why? What's your?
You got to say my middle name.
I do now.
No,
Triple
James
J
Johnson, Triple J Ranch, LLC, DBA.
Oh man, he's got it all ready.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. What's my why?
Yeah,
man. To inspire others so that they may have the career that they deserve and desire. That is my why. I
think that's the most, that well punctuated one I've heard yet. It's nice, it's concise. That's and I think why. I see you living that every single day.
Oh, for sure.
I try. And I always haven't, and I think that's what drives me more is, part of leadership is learning from failures and recognizing your failures, but respecting them.
Sure.
And I have failed as a leader, and I still have failures today, and, I had a pretty big one in 2013, and not to get long winded on it or whatnot, but, I had that aha moment of like, you are not who you think you are.
Yeah.
So stop.
Yeah.
And change
those
yourself
times when you
right
realize
now.
like you get too big for your own britches.
Well, and because everything's going right, everything's going good. You have a good crew, everything's cool, and then you have this moment of immaturity that takes over, and you forget who you are for a second. And I don't mean in like every sense of the word, but you're not the leader at work that you are at home, or you're not the person at work that you are at home. And I wasn't. And I went through that, and it ended up. Where I did not provide that balance and that path for an individual to have the career that he deserved and he desired, and he ended up losing his job. And so now I refuse, to allow myself to get back to that point. And I refuse to ever not treat people right. And for me, if you want to raise morale, you got to treat people right.
Yeah.
And so we have to move forward from that. You have to recognize that. And so I've been trying to live that, and I'm always going to stumble, or I'm always going to have little failures that I have to learn from and grow. But at the end of the day, when I walk away from this place and you ask me in 30 years what my why is, it's to inspire others to have the career they deserve and desire.
Yeah. That's good, amazing, man. I dig it. We're going to get that on some shirts.
That's a shirt.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a good shirt.
Yeah. Can have Johnson your face on it?
Absolutely. I'll put my face on anything around here.
Where did these lines come from? Because you seem to be in love with these lines and all the logos.
So he's talking about the PLTV logo, by the way. Nobody can see this because it's a podcast.
Or the ISO 1 logo. Or
the
beard you're trying to grow.
So, hey, don't pick on the beard. I'm working on it. It's got lines in it too. We started the why exercise, right? What we provide, how we provide it, why. And it's so dumb how I stumbled across this. Originally, we had our strategic priorities. And I'm going to pick on John McCarter because he's not here anymore. Sorry, John McCarter, if you ever listen to this.
I'm going to send it to him.
There was
he just friend requested me.
There was this design, and it was a circle, and it had concentric circles around it. You remember the old strategic priorities? And selfishly, all I wanted to do was redesign that because I didn't think it was very good looking. And so I sent it to John McCarter, and I'm like, how did this come to be? And he was like, I wrote those, and it's literally just smart art from PowerPoint. And he said, so whatever you want to do, like, go right ahead. Okay, cool. So I started thinking about the design work, and there's somebody on our team, Allison Witten, at the time, who she started coming up with these ideas. And I originally had Simon Sinek's Golden Circles concept in mind to use as the base of our artwork. And she was trying to take the circles and convert it into somewhat of a P shape for Pearland. And we stumbled across this idea of the original City of Pearland logo, which you can actually still see outside of Independence Park.
Right.
So City of Pearland, Texas, on the outside has a tree, and it has a P with the lines in the middle of it. And so we resurrected that, and we traced it and used that as the base. So the top of the P are the strategic priorities, and then the vertical parts are the literal pillars that we stand on, the core values. And in the middle of it, the nucleus is the community, right? So we got the circles concept and then put it in that shape. And we took that shape, made it solid line colors. And Josh Heiberger has been developing basically a whole alphabet, our own font to use across everything. So Pearland Cares Committee, PLCC, they have the same thing. The ISO has that. So the way we look at that, I want that P to be in everything. I want people to understand what it means, right? And I want it to be just to the right of every door handle of their vehicle. So every time you grab the door handle of your truck, you see that P, and it reminds you why we exist as an organization, right? Subliminally, I want it to be on. I put it on the side of my van on both sides, right?
So yeah, you did.
Real big.
Anchorman style, right?
Yeah. And but that's the whole idea, is to just keep that injected in everything that we do, so nobody can ever forget why we exist as an organization.
I like it.
Yeah. So I was trying to pull up the old logo, that way you could see but I love that it ties back to that, right?
So that's another thing, is it keeps us true to, to us as a community. But we wanted to develop something that was, that could stand the test of time, right?
Sure.
And so getting lines on everything now. We're just like,
I like it.
Lines.
Yeah. Well, you can't stop a line. Right?
That's true.
There you go.
I didn't think we'd have any jokes in this one.
Are you kidding me? You invited me. You're not going to get a joke or two.
We had Erin Coleman on a couple episodes back, and she has a degree in geology. I don't know if you know this or not. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a ring that I need to get, so if she would.
I mean, I'm sure she could tell you all about it.
Tell me which rock to go pick.
We had to do some rock jokes with her. So,
can I pass you the rock?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What was there was one I ended up having to look up some. Anyways, they were all really dumb. I'm sorry. It was a good time. Anything else we need to know about Jacob James Johnson?
Well, I mean, how much time you got?
Ooh, man. What's up?
No. What do y'all want? I mean, what do you want to know? I mean,
I have a question.
What is that?
Do you remember? I'm sure you do. Take me back to your very first fire that you ever
I talk about it all the time. Yeah. October 31st, 2002. That was my first time to ever go first in on a line. I talk about it all the time because it was my main dude. It was my mentor, Pops, Mike Lane. And it was a trailer fire, and fire was in the back bedroom. And I'll never forget, man, like we put the fire out, and I'm feeling like I'm on top of the world, you know. And Pops looks at me and says, go grab a pike pole. And for those of you who don't know, you know, a pike pole is a tool that we use to pull down sheetrock, ceilings, to cut holes in sheetrock, stuff like that inside the house. It's to open up so we can salvage and overhaul. And so I said, yes, sir, Captain, I'm going. And I ran back to the truck, and I was so new. I say new, but that was my first fire. So like I am super tunnel vision.
Right.
And it was like the first lesson I've ever gotten in the fire service where it's like, you cannot be tunnel vision. Like you cannot solve a high level problem with a low level mindset. So you've got to raise your mindset up all the time. And I went back to the truck, and I'm looking for a pike pole, and there's only one. Mind you, I'd said a trailer fire. We're talking 80 foot long, 15 foot wide. Mm-hmm. The only pike pole left on the truck, 8 foot ceilings in the trailer, was a 12 foot pike pole.
Whoops.
So I grabbed it, right? Captain said, get me a pike pole. I knew one of two things. I better not show up without a pike pole, and I better not show up without a pike pole.
Right.
Right. So I needed to get a pike pole in there. So I go, and I'm fighting through the hallway with this thing to get to the back bedroom. All trailers are the same, right? You walk into the living room, you got one hallway to your right, one to your left, and it goes to a bathroom on this side with a bedroom, and it goes to the kitchen, the laundry room, and a bathroom bedroom on that side. So they're all the same. And I get all the way back, and he looks at me, and he's fuming, you know, and he's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And, you know, he's fuming. And so he throws it out the window, and he's like, I told you to use your brain, get a pike pole. It's something that we can use, you know. And, you know, not to mind you, there's 6 other trucks on the street, right? But I'm so locked in, and I'm so tunnel visioned to, I have to use the stuff off my truck. And my chauffeur, Chris Nolan, he come up and he goes, hey, Rook, I think he's talking about this. And he hands me a closet hook, which is a shorter pike pole, about 2.5, 3 foot.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, you know. And so we clean up, we're doing overhaul, and I'm still like really excited. I know I made a mistake, but I'm really excited. We go back to the firehouse, and I'm like, hey, Cap, how'd I do? Because I'm young and I want a pat on the back, you know. And he looked at me and he was like, you suck. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, man, I'm talking about heart crushed.
Right. Yeah.
Crushed, right? And so I remember like taking a shower. I was all depressed. You know, I say depressed, but just down in the dumps.
Yeah, sure.
You know, like didn't even feel like calling home and saying I made my first fire, you know. And went to bed, made a couple medical runs, got up the next morning, went home, you know, and I'm just moping around, you know, what's wrong? Tell Dad the story. And, you know, Dad's trying to give me some advice on how to handle it, you know. And, you know, Thursday comes around, I go back to work, and I walk in. I do the exact same thing that I've done for, you know, ever. I walk in, and I'm making coffee, and I'm making tea, because that's the 2 big staples in a firehouse. You got to have coffee and tea. And, you know, Captain walks in and pops, and I say, morning, Captain. And he looks at me and goes, you came back. And I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we have shift today.
Right.
And he goes, you ready to get to work? I said, all right. I said, sure. And I said, what's the deal? I said, he just told me I sucked, you know. And he goes, look, he said, here's the thing. He said, if I would have looked at you in that moment, and I would have told you, you killed it. He said, you would never come back with the mindset today that you were going to get better. He said, I tell every rookie that I'm in charge of after their first fire that they suck, because I want to see the attitude when they walk in through the door of their next tour.
Yep.
You're making coffee. You're making tea. You said, morning, Cap. You're the exact same person. You're ready to learn. You're ready to push forward. And I said, yeah, I am. I don't want to suck. And he goes, that's how I know you passed the test. If you come in hanging your head and still wanting to feel sorry for yourself and all this stuff because I didn't pat you on the back, you'll never survive in this job.
Wow.
And that was it. That was my first fire.
That's wild.
Isn't it wild?
That is amazing.
Like to experience that, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And I think back now, I talked to Pops up until he died in 2018 all the time.
Yeah.
Sure.
All the time.
That's a true
one of my
mentor.
greatest mentors.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah.
I and there was times that I wouldn't call him for months, and I'd run into him in the grocery store, and we talked so long that my wife Lauren would call me and say, like, "Are you coming home?" Be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking with Pops."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And man, I just like a picture just popped up on my phone the other day, and it was back when he was a battalion chief, and I was a senior pipeman, a senior person in the firehouse, and I was just like, man, like that's Pops. He's smiling, he's laughing, but he was the hardest dude that I've ever worked for in my career. His expectations were so high that I felt like I could never reach them. And I think I would like to know if I could ask him these days is I almost wonder they had expectations so high that he knew that very few, if any, would ever reach them, but that he inspired those to keep reaching.
Right.
Right. And so like till this day, and I won't find out till I see him again,
Sure.
is did I ever meet his expectations? Because they were just that high. It was just, he would always tell you good job once you had a few years, but he would never tell you like, hey man, I'm proud of you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And when he did tell you that, it meant the world to you.
Sure.
You know, and I was very fortunate. I'm going to get emotional here, but I was very fortunate. The last time I saw him was 4 months before he died. We were at the Katy Rodeo, and he gave me the biggest hug he's ever given me in my career, in my life. And he gave me a hug, and he grabbed my shoulder right here, and he said, I'm proud of you. And that was, woof. That was it. You know,
Man.
That's all I needed for validation of everything, you know, through 2013 Jacob, when I was a failure, to, you know, Battalion Chief Jacob, to a guy that's given up a department to come to Pearland and start this one. And, you know, all the risks that I took and all the growth that I think I had, or I thought I had. And from going bottom of the barrel to Battalion Chief at the time, you know, all of it was validated in that 2 seconds.
Yeah.
All of it, you know? And so like, I'll be forever grateful for that moment. And so when I go and I present, or I go talk about leadership and the stuff that I'm passionate about, I always talk about him and show a picture, because this guy, he was in the Marines. He worked for 4 or 5 different fire departments. He was a police officer, a full-time police officer. And at 62 years old, went to paramedic school and worked in Fort Bend County on the busiest ambulance that they had. And then when he was 68, got bored and said, I'm going to be a senior professional golfer, and played senior professional golf until he died.
Goodness
like
gracious.
Didn't stop, you
That's
know? And I mean, lived life to the fullest, you know? And, you know, to think like, you know, it was that guy. And there was one day, funny side of Pops, I was 16 and I knew him, but I didn't know him. And we lived in the same neighborhood, and I kind of like slow rolled through a stop sign because I was trying to get home to get my shotgun to go dove hunt. And it was right by his house, and a trash can came through my through my windshield. And there he was on the side of the street, and boy, I tell you, he lit me up. So when he saw me when I walked through the doors as his rookie, he was like, he just looked at me drinking his coffee, you know. So he was like, oh, I'm gonna get this guy now, you know. But
that's amazing.
He ended up being one of my best friends, you know, and one of my ultimate mentors. And you know, he did absolutely everything that he could ever in his life, and he had a beautiful family and lived life to the fullest, and you know, nothing more you could ask for. But that's a long answer to my first fire. So
thanks for telling that story, man. That's awesome.
I always like hearing about people like that, because I mean, the people like that stand out. You know what absolutely. I mean? Because it's just awe-inspiring to watch them, right?
Yep.
And when you're in their presence, I mean, you're in the presence of greatness.
Yep.
I always wish that I could be like that.
He was a legend that nobody ever knew, because platforms like podcast and FaceTime and Zoom and Facebook and all those things didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like Pops only lives through stories that I have, or through anybody else that he inspired over 70 plus years of life and 50 plus years of service. Is he only lives through those stories. Like, and that's the stuff that I wish I could capture, encapsulate, and share. Is like, I feel like I have the need to continue to push and keep him alive, and keep Gary Tilton alive, another good mentor, and all these people that have had impacts in my life, because I sit where I sit today, not because of me and Jacob and what I've done or what career goals I have. It's because of everybody that came before me that taught me and that took me under the wing and gave me those hard talks or gave me those hard lessons when I needed them most, you know? Sure. So, I'm not a success without them. And I don't know if I'll ever measure myself as a success, you know, but I do know that 1-2 second moment in the ag barn at Katy High School was like a moment I will always go to my grave and say I was successful in that moment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you know, I mean, just through your daily actions and the influence that you have, you know, on the generations that are coming up now, you know, that legacy will live through the intentional investment you make to deliver against, you know, your own purpose, right? And I think that's a really special thing, and something that I don't think, you know, we talk about enough. I mean, it's easy to be critical of ourselves, and I think it's important to have people in your life that are willing to tell you like the hard truths and you know, not sugarcoat things, and but you know, that can also help you grow as an individual, right? And teach you how to live your best life in everything you do. But I mean, I'm pretty confident
I hope so.
You're gonna tell somebody someday that you're proud of them, and they're gonna be like, oh, I got the Triple J appreciation.
I hope so.
J Cube appreciation.
J Cube, that's another sticker. That's another sticker.
Yeah, that's right.
J Cube approved. Yeah. We need to get you a stamp.
Yeah.
Hey, don't tell me. I'll go make it.
Boop.
I'll go make it.
There you go. Stamp, stickers. But yeah, I mean, that's my first fire. That's awesome. You know? One of my very first memories, and you know, one of the best moments of my life, I think. Yeah. So first fires are great.
What's the wildest experience you've ever had? Like craziest thing that's obviously podcast friendly?
Like in life or in the job?
No, on the job. On the job. Like, as a firefighter, okay. like big fires. Have you what's the, you know, I mean,
I would have to say the wildest was, I mean, if we're looking for like serious or funny, I mean, I would have to say that there was this person that was threatening to burn down their house because they wanted to see the fire department put out the fire.
What?
Yeah. Wow. And so we showed up on scene, and this is in another city. It's not even in Pearland. And I was riding in the back. I was a firefighter, and I remember the captain saying, like, well, how are you going to burn down your house? And this individual had, you know, like those soft start matches, you know, like you got to pinch the paper and pull it.
Yeah.
And
like old Bard.
Yeah. So like they lit it. They went, they said, with this match, and the wind blew it out at that moment, and I lost it. I couldn't hold it in. The whole crew's laughing, like, you know, we're done at that moment. And the captain looked at the cop. He goes, "There's no threat." You know? So we got in the truck and we ran back, and I was like, and I remember going back. I was like, I love this job so much, man. Like this, that is wild. Like that, if you could have seen the look in their eyes, like that moment, they for sure are going to burn down this house with one paper match. And as soon as they lit it, the wind blew it out.
Oh, that's great.
I couldn't hold it in. Man.
That's amazing.
I lost it, you know.
Golly.
And it ended up being that, you know, we would go back there several times a month.
Sure.
It was just, you know, you have one of those people that always call or always come up with a reason, or some of them actually have a lot of issues, you know. But that one moment, that one day, I was just like, man, this is the greatest job in the world right here, you know. Like I just put on my gear and I ran hot and went emergency traffic to this house, and they said, with this match, you know. So, yeah, man. But
that's magical.
Yeah, you know, that's you know, on the funny side, and on the serious side, you know, it was actually here in Pearland. We had a fire 2 days before Christmas over in Shadow Creek, and myself and my crew, we were going upstairs, and we almost fell through. The fire had been burning for so long that it was a staircase that turned at like a, you know, almost a 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
And then there's this walkway with banister on one side that looks over the living room, banister on this side looks over the front door, and it goes into like this, I don't know what you call it, rotunda. You know, it's not, I don't want to call it a foyer, but you know, you had like a step up into a game room here. You had a media room here. And then you had this hallway that went to other bedrooms. And we're trying to put the fire out and go search these other bedrooms. And I felt my legs go out and the floor fall. And I remember jumping back on my crew and saying, like, don't move. We got to stay right here. We, you know, I knew that we were in an archway, just
because it's dark in there.
I have a camera, you know, the thermal imager camera. I can see, and I was like, okay, there's an arch, and I knew like that's a strong point of the house. I don't know where else to go at the moment. Just don't move, you know. And so like that fire pops up every year, and I think about it, and I also think about the decisions I could have made to be better. The decisions I could have made that maybe would have prevented us climbing those stairs and even getting thrown in that situation. I could come up with a million reasons, you know, and like I remember that night, like we stayed there late just thinking about it and going over in our heads and like, what did we miss and how could we get better? And, you know, because it's a very real job,
right?
Yeah.
You know, firefighters die every day. Someone's getting hurt, someone's getting killed,
sure.
You know, and it's not always in a fire. Sometimes it's responding to a fire. Sometimes it's a heart attack. Sometimes it's, you know, a stroke or a seizure or all these different things. And so it's those things in my mind, you can control. I can control the way that I prepare my body every day for work. I can control how much I work out, how much I don't work out. I can control what I eat. I can control what my blood pressure is. I just have to check it and understand if I have to, you know, go get on medicine to keep it normal, because you're not going to beat family genes.
Right.
You know, with cholesterol, there's medicines to control it because you're not going to beat family genes. You have to get your checkups. You have to do your physicals. And there's so much of that we can control, that we have to control it, because there is so much on a fire scene, in the firehouse, on an EMS call, that you can't control that can kill you.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's where I when I'm in a situation like that you can consider a close call or a near miss, is we got to break it down. We got to get better.
Do y'all typically debrief after fires?
100% of the time. Yep. Always. So you do a hot wash, they call it on scene. Like, what did you see? What did you do? How can we get better? And then we do an official after action, which is, you know, filling out a template and sending it to officers. So one thing that I really like to do as a battalion chief is I would take pictures and I would do PowerPoints and I would do big Zoom AARs of like, this is where I failed as a commander. This is where I think we can get better. You know, how about you? How about you? And we would really start breaking it down. Because, you know, we're a fairly busy fire department and we're only going to get busier. And you know, every year that we increase calls is increased opportunities to get hurt, killed, injured, or worse yet, not meet the expectations of the citizens.
Right, right.
That's all a greater risk.
Right.
And so we have to prepare for those moments.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a for real, like, you got a big job.
Yep. Yep. And the men and women on the streets are the ones that have the biggest job.
Sure.
You know, they're the ones we have to take care of the most. We have to pray for the most. We have to worry for the most.
Yeah.
That they're the ones that we have to ensure have every tool, ability, knowledge, training, preparation, commitment, dedication, everything to their taking. Yep. So they can grab it and do their job, you know, and
absolutely.
And, especially now in this position, because I don't go to the fires that I used to. It's even more important to me to make sure that they have what they need, because I know what it is to be in that spot, you know, and I know what it is to have that feeling and what it is to fail and what it is to succeed. And, you know, my hope and dream is to never go to another firefighter funeral, you know?
Yeah.
So been to too many. We've buried 3 of our own. I don't want to do it again.
Right.
You know, so if I can do anything in my power to control that, I will.
Sure.
Yep. Amazing.
Yeah. It's wild. I don't even know what to say.
It's a lot to,
That's so deep. I was actually thinking about this. We talked about it before we came on. We haven't done too many of these episodes, but you are the first fire department person we've had on.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that.
I think probably partly because it's kind of intimidating.
I told him, I was like, this is the first one I'm legit intimidated to do.
Yeah. Why?
I'm impressed, man. I'm just impressed. That's all. Yeah.
It's just a different, it's just a different animal all around. Yeah. And I mean, we started this thing, you know, to hit it as much of a cross section as possible, all departments around the city.
Sure.
And it's fascinating to talk to people from PD versus fire versus parks. I mean, there's a common theme that runs through all of it. But each department, I mean, it operates differently from one another,
right. Yeah. And that's, but when you talk about being intimidated, you know who intimidates me the most? The water department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They go, their dinners and their family plans get interrupted more than any firefighter out there.
So that's true.
Especially this past summer with the droughts and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't, how many times did you get a sit rep come across it? Water main break at 2 in the morning.
Right.
They're out there and they're fixing it.
Yeah.
And they're at risk of getting hurt and they're at risk of getting killed. And what do they do on the back end to prevent that and control that?
Yep.
You know,
right.
Every trench they dig is an opportunity for collapse. And if you get stuck in a trench collapse, I'm telling you now, you're not surviving.
No.
Yeah.
If
you see
do,
those
it's
pictures,
because you are one of the very, very lucky few.
Yeah. And you see those pictures, they're underneath the water, just swimming.
They're
and
soaked and they're doing it. They're welding underground.
No, you're absolutely right.
It's, that's who intimidates me because when I'm not on call, when I'm not on duty, when I go home tonight, if I get interrupted, it's going to be a very rare occurrence. It's going to seem very strange, right? It's something big has happened.
Yeah.
Even when I was on shift, when I went home and I wasn't on mandatory recall, I was home for 4 days. Like there was no expectation for me to come back to the city.
Yeah.
Where these men and women work 40 hours a week, they're on call every night, and they may be out till 2-3 o'clock in the morning,
and then
they're coming back at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that talking to them and trying to explain how I feel to the citizens, they're probably like, "Oh, this guy's a joke." Like, bro, you get to eat, you get 3 meals, you get to sleep in a firehouse. I'm out here in this F-350, it's 20 degrees, and I'm having to work a dozer.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's all intertwined. It's what makes our city great. It's what makes us great as a team. It's why we are the elite of the elite. Like I have that mentality for the fire department specifically, but as a city, I don't see another city better than ours.
No, I agree with that. I think that there's a lot to be proud of, right? And we're fortunate to see a really large cross section of city employees, and I have yet to meet one that's not energetic, helpful, passionate, selfless. And I mean, there's so many fascinating stories out there, and inspiring ones too. I mean,
for sure.
Water department in a winter storm. I mean, that'll really take a charge for you.
Yeah. And I mean, winter storm year, we made just over 400 calls in 3 days at the fire department. And most of those was busted water pipes. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, like, all I'm doing is shutting the water off.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to be out here and dig and fix and work in these conditions for a lot longer hours than I have to.
Yeah.
So it's when you talk about intimidating, that's intimidating to me because we do a lot of manual labor and we do a lot of life-saving work. And yes, we have a greater risk to get injured, killed, or hurt on the job. Like I understand it. But at the same time, like the amount of commitment that it takes for individuals in that department to agree to go on call and understand they can't do anything with their family. They can't go anywhere. They can't, they have to be ready. And more than likely, and I'm just throwing a number, I bet you more than 60% of the time, they're going to get called.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Whether they have to come in or not, someone's going to call their on-call phone.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine if I'd get home at 6:30 tonight after driving for an hour and then like my phone go off and I have to come right back in. It's got to be tough.
It is. If you ever get the chance, talk to Eric Hammond or Dante Prescott or David Kent about their experience during Harvey, and it is
unreal,
just unbelievable. Riding out to Barry Rose and the bucket of a front end loader because that was the only thing that could afford the water. To put sandbags to prevent it from going under. Like, I mean, and then to go out to Reflection Bay and do the whole thing over again.
Right.
Like, I mean, just unbelievable stuff. And turns out Dante's afraid of alligators, so that's pretty fun.
And I'm afraid of snakes. And we were treading in the waters of trailer parks off of 128, and there was the pile of floating ants. And as soon as they hit something solid, they were gone. There were snakes everywhere. I remember coming down 100 in the brush truck, and there was like maybe 1.5 feet of roadway that wasn't covered by water in the middle, and all you saw was snakes scooting back and forth to get out of the water. They were just sitting there, and you were driving, and they were. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, like we're about to get in this water. Like kids are playing in the water and they're riding their bikes, and I'm like, I just crossed, and I'm like,
did you have waders or anything? Or
dude? Funny story. Funny story.
Hunting
pays
off.
Yeah.
Oh, it does,
because I knew what I was coming into.
Yeah,
and I grabbed my hunting waders, my duck hunting waders, and so I showed up to the firehouse, and I'm like, I'm gonna look terrible, but I'm gonna be dry.
But you won't be able to see me. Because
it was the timber pattern, so I could suck in close to a tree and shoot ducks in the face,
exactly.
Blow their beaks off, man. But anyway, so I remember getting there and like I had my quarter zip on, I had my safety vest, I had a hat, and there I was in 1600 thin slit boot, chest waders.
You know what?
And I had them suckers tight.
Dry as dry.
Yeah. Oh man, and we're wading through that water, and I'm like, man, I'm so thankful that I love to hunt ducks because I have good waders. Now, I wrote a letter to Drake Clothing Company. I was like, just want to let you know, your waders saved me during Harvey. Awesome. If I would have gone under and they would have filled with water, I was a goner.
Oh, yeah. But,
but for the moment, I was dry, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I can literally say that I went all through Harvey, and I never had to get wet because I always had my waders.
That's impressive.
So when I packed up for Winter Storm Uri, I insulated boots, coveralls, my goose hunting parka, my insulated waders, just in case. I didn't know what I was going to be doing.
Hand warmers.
Yeah, tossed it all in the truck, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be at PSB for a while.
You packed all that to stay inside?
No, we were going to be out in the field. I mean, we had to go out to shoot videos or to document things or whatever. Yeah. And so
I'm like, golly, you knew you were staying inside and you packed all that.
Well, we did end up staying inside, but we had to. I mean, we were out every day.
Quite a bit.
I was prepared. Be prepared.
That's right.
Yeah, hunting pays off. That's all there is to it.
I'm
hunting
dressed in camo the whole time. But
but it pays off because if you're just a fisherman, you're not going to have any of that.
No, that's very true. Unless it's saltwater in the wintertime, and then you will have
then you have that. But, it's not nearly as cool as duck hunting.
No, it's not. It's not. Duck hunting, goose hunting stuff. Dude, it is so comfortable.
Yeah.
I got my waterproof, windproof outer layer, my 1,000 grams of thin slate.
That's right.
Heck yeah, man. I'm warm. I don't like being cold. Look at me. I'm from Texas, man. I don't do cold.
That's not why you don't do cold, Josh. I don't do cold because I have pencil.
Oh, well, all right. This is Jacob Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Jacob James Johnson.
Jacob James, Triple J, JQ.
I can't.
LLC.
I'm so happy I know that.
That's right. Yeah.
It brings me so much joy. Thank you for coming on our show today. We appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate it. It was a blast.
That's awesome, man.
And we'll let you get back to inspiring others and fighting fires and
making
all the things. So, all right, Pearland, we'll see y'all next time.
See you next time.